Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. It was an interesting weekend, even in these highly interesting times. During a Saturday rally in Florida, you may have seen, President Trump said this.
We've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible. You look at what's happening in Brussels. You look at what's happening all over the world. Take a look at Nice. Take a look at Paris.
Well, some said they were confused by this. Among those was the Prime Minister of Sweden, who said this.
I was, like many others, I believe, surprised by the comments made about Sweden this weekend. So yes, we have opportunities, we have challenges, we're working with them every day, but I think also we must all take responsibility for using facts correctly and for verifying any information that we spread.
Well, how confused were people really? We may never know. It turns out, though, the president was referring to a segment on this show. Last week, we showed you an interview with documentary filmmaker Ami Horowitz, who visited Sweden to study its immigration experience. Some police there told him this. Watch.
Do you see the violence really spreading across Sweden into the cities?
At least 1 or 2 times a week.
And let's say 5 years ago, how often would you say it was?
No.
3 times a year.
Really? The increase in this kind of crime is exponential.
I think we caught off guard. We didn't expect it to be so much increase.
Do you think there's a deliberate attempt to cover up these type of crimes?
Rather than that they don't want to seem racist.
Well, the 2 cops in that video later denied meaning what they seemed to mean in that video. One of them called Ami Horowitz a madman. Mr. Horowitz joins us tonight. Ami, thanks for coming on. So there were a number of pieces today calling into question the credibility of that documentary, clips of which, as we said, we showed on Friday. But let's start with the allegations of those 2 policemen. They both said, in effect, you misled them and that they were not talking about immigration at all, and that, in effect, this is wrong, the depiction of them. How do you respond?
Yeah, let me first say that those 2 guys are really honorable men. They are brave men who are doing a wonderful service to their community. They really are. Having said that, could you imagine the amount of pressure that must be on them from their bosses, because this maelstrom that they kind of found themselves in? So I don't necessarily blame them for kind of wanting to cover their butts a little bit on this thing. But the reality is, everything I asked them, it's clear what their answers were. They're the ones who discussed they didn't want to be considered racist. They're the ones who used the words no-go zones when describing these Islamic enclaves, not me. Listen, I've been doing this thing, and I've been creating some very high-profile videos over the past 10 years. I've never had a subject claim, and certainly not prove, that I ever misled them or ever doctored the footage. It's never happened before. So my record stands for itself, and what you saw on that video is clear as day, stands for itself.
Well, that's a pretty generous response, considering one of these guys called you, as I just said, a madman. Now, they went on to say that they were not talking about immigrants. They were talking about high-crime areas in Sweden. Do you think that's possible?
Oh, no. I mean, the no-go zones are clearly a discussion of Islamic enclaves. Why would they say later on that bit they don't want to be considered racist if they're talking about simply Swedes and a high crime rate? I mean, they're the ones who said that I don't want to be picked out as racist, and it's a big part of my daily work. Those are those words. So, no, it was clear from their answers that we're talking about whatever the subject we're talking about.
Right. And as it happens, there was earlier this month a cop in Sweden who wrote on Facebook his complaints about immigrant crime, and the government of Sweden looked into him for a thought crime or hate crime or some associated crime. But there were a number of other pieces today that called into question your crime stats, and they basically all echoed the same point, which is there is no crime wave in Sweden, they claimed, and certainly no wave of immigrant rapes, something that you've talked about and a lot of people have talked about online. How do you respond to that?
So I'm glad you asked that. So I've read, obviously, a lot of the same stuff, and I wanted to, belts and suspenders. I went through these stats Before the video, while I was editing the video, I went through them all over again. So BRA, B-R-A, which is the keeper of all statistics, of crime statistics in Sweden, I went through them specifically. So to give you some exact numbers. So between 2012 and 2016, the murder rate is up almost 70%. This is Swedes' statistics. Rape between 2007 and 2015 is up a similar number, almost 70%. These are their statistics, not my statistics.
Now, just to be clear, are these Swedish government statistics?
Yes.
So in the last 10 years, rape is up dramatically.
Correct.
So how the claim, I mean, Vox had a long piece today saying it wasn't up at all. And in fact, if anything, Sweden's a little safer than it's been. How do you, I mean, let me answer
that. Yeah, let me say it by saying this. Is it crazy they might be lying? I'll give you an example. PolitiFact, right? PolitiFact, we all looked at PolitiFact as nonpartisan, correct?
Right.
Well, if you look at their article today in discussing our interview, trying to debunk it, they said that I said that there are 500 Swedish immigrants from Islamic countries who have jobs, and everybody else is unemployed. They said I said that. If you look at the tape, those words never left my mouth. So PolitiFact obviously lied. It's clear as day. You can look at the videotape, look at the interview, look at what they said, and you can see that they're obviously lying. So I don't know what to tell you. You just can't take what they're saying.
I mean, I may have it wrong, but I think that statistic actually comes from the Swedish National Council, by the way. And I don't know if you have ever said it or not, but I read it today, and I think it's a credible
I'm sure it's very credible, but I never said it. But PolitiFact specifically said that I said it.
Okay. Ami Horowitz, thanks a lot for clearing that up, and thanks for your original piece, which I thought was really interesting.